The sarcastic teacher glanced around the room with a wry smile before uttering, "If by any chance there are individuals of questionable intellect among us, would you be so kind as to grace us with your presence by standing up?" A hushed silence filled the room until a brave freshman finally decided to rise from his seat. The teacher, with a hint of mockery, probed, "Well then, young man, what might lead you to classify yourself as an individual of, let's say, less than stellar intellectual prowess?" The student chuckled, responding, "Actually, I don't consider myself in that category at all. However, I simply couldn't bear the thought of leaving you in splendid isolation up there all by yourself." In a quaint little town, a curious incident unfolded in a local barber shop. A young boy with a twinkle in his eye entered, catching the attention of the barber, who leaned in to whisper to his customer, "This is the dumbest kid in the world. Watch while I prove it to you." Intrigued, the barber devised a clever test. He placed a dollar bill in one hand and 2 quarters in the other. Beckoning the boy over, with a quizzical expression, the barber inquired, "Which do you want, son?" Without hesitation, the boy reached for the 2 quarters and made a swift exit. Proudly, the barber declared, "What did I tell you? That kid never learns." As the customer left the barber shop, he happened to spot the same young boy emerging from the nearby ice cream parlor, indulging in a delicious cone. Seizing the opportunity, the customer approached him with a friendly smile and asked, "Hey, son, may I ask you a question? Why did you take the quarters instead of the dollar bill?" The boy, with a mischievous grin, continued licking his ice cream cone and replied, "Because the day I take the dollar, the game is over." The cleverness of the young boy left the customer chuckling, realizing that sometimes wisdom comes in unexpected packages. In a tense turn of events, Putin finds himself held hostage by a determined terrorist. Meanwhile, on a crowded motorway, a Russian truck driver becomes an unwitting participant in a peculiar fundraising endeavor. As the truck comes to a halt at the end of a lengthy queue, the driver observes a police officer making his way down the line of immobilized vehicles. Engaging in brief conversations with the concerned drivers, seizing the opportunity to glean information, the trucker rolls down his window and inquires, "What's going on?" The policeman, with an air of urgency, reveals the unsettling situation. A terrorist is holding Putin hostage in a car. He's demanding 10 million rubles, or he'll douse Putin in petrol and set him on fire. We're asking drivers for donations to meet the ransom. Perplexed but curious, the truck driver nods, absorbing the gravity of the circumstance. In a nonchalant tone, he probes further, "Oh, okay, how much do people donate on average?" With a wry smile, the policeman responds, "About a gallon." The truck driver's bewilderment transforms into amusement, realizing that even in the face of a high-stakes political crisis, the resilience and humor of the Russian spirit endure, turning an alarming scenario into an unexpected display of collective wit. Amidst the humdrum of life, the renowned physicist Albert Einstein found himself once again on the way to another scientific conference. The familiar routine, the monotony of delivering the same lectures, and the ceaseless repetition had begun to wear on him. Seated beside him was his driver, a man whose features bore a striking resemblance to the iconic scientist. Voicing his frustration, Einstein remarked to his doppelganger driver, "I'm sick of all these conferences. I always say the same things over and over." The driver, understanding the sentiment all too well, nodded in agreement. "You're right. As your driver, I attended all of them, and even though I don't know anything about science, I could give the conference in your place." Einstein, intrigued by the notion, smiled, "That's a great idea. Let's switch places then." With a whimsical exchange of clothes, the distinguished physicist found himself in the driver's seat, donning the chauffeur's uniform, while his driver, now clad in Einstein's signature attire, prepared to take center stage. The plan was set in motion as they arrived at the conference venue. The driver, now disguised as Einstein, confidently stepped onto the stage, ready to deliver the customary speech. Meanwhile, the true Einstein, incognito as the driver, took a seat among the audience, relishing the opportunity to experience the event from a fresh perspective. However, the story took an unexpected turn when a scientist in the crowd, fueled by a desire to impress his peers, formulated a question that he believed would stump even the great Einstein. Rising from his seat, he interrupted the conference, presenting his formidable query. The room fell into a hushed silence, anticipations high, awaiting the response. Unfazed, the driver turned Einstein locked eyes with the inquisitive scientist, and calmly responded, "Sir, your question is so easy to answer that I'm going to let my driver reply to it for me." The unexpected twist elicited a collective gasp from the audience, who now found themselves caught in a web of delightful confusion. As the spotlight shifted to the disguised driver, The scientist realized he had unwittingly set the stage for a comedic revelation. The driver, seizing the moment with a twinkle in his eye, stepped forward and delivered an ingenious response that left the audience in stitches. The room erupted in laughter as the true Einstein, thoroughly entertained, watched from the sidelines. The ruse had not only alleviated the tedium of another conference, but had also injected an element of humor and unpredictability into the scholarly gathering. Einstein, in his newfound role as the amused observer, couldn't help but appreciate the irony of the situation. As the conference continued with an air of lightheartedness, he reflected on the joy derived from breaking the monotony of routine, even if just for a moment. The tale of the swapped identities spread among the scientific community, becoming a legendary anecdote that added a touch of mirth to the world of serious academic endeavors. Little did the attendees know that beneath the veneer of intellectual pursuits, there existed a willingness to embrace the whimsical side of life, a side that Albert Einstein himself had uncovered in a moment of playful rebellion against the repetition that had grown all too familiar. Chocked, in the quaint town of Ludlow, nestled between rolling hills and serene landscapes, there lived a man who was living his childhood dream, driving trains. Ever since he was a wide-eyed child, he had harbored a fascination for the powerful locomotives, their rhythmic chugging, and the thrill of speeding through the tracks. As fate would have it, he grew up to be a train conductor, fulfilling his lifelong aspiration. His passion for making trains go as fast as possible was well known among his colleagues. But one ill-fated day, his enthusiasm led to a catastrophic incident. A momentary lapse of judgment resulted in a tragic crash, claiming the life of an innocent person. The man survived the wreckage, but the weight of guilt and responsibility hung heavily over him. The wheels of justice turned, and soon he found himself in a courtroom, facing the consequences of his reckless actions. The verdict was delivered: guilty. His sentence was as shocking as the incident itself: death by electrocution. The once joyful conductor, now burdened by remorse, awaited the day of his execution. On the appointed day, he made an unusual request for his last meal, a single banana. The prison staff, puzzled by the choice, granted the request. After consuming the humble fruit, he was strapped into the electric chair. The switch was thrown, sparks flew, and smoke filled the air, but to Evryon's surprise, the man emerged unharmed. According to an old Bulgarian law, a failed execution was considered a divine intervention, and so, the man was set free. Remarkably, he managed to secure his old job back, once again at the helm of a speeding train. However, instead of learning from his previous misfortune, he returned to his reckless ways. The inevitable happened: another train crash, this time claiming 2 lives. History repeated itself as the man found himself back in the courtroom, facing the consequences of his actions. The verdict mirrored the first trial, execution. For his last meal, he requested 2 bananas. Following the unusual routine, he ate the bananas and, once again, survived the electric chair unscathed. In an astonishing turn of events, the man was released once more. Against all odds, he managed to reclaim his coveted position as a train conductor. However, the predictable occurred: another disastrous crash, this time with a death toll of 3. The courtroom saga unfolded once more, leading to his 3rd death sentence. On the day of the scheduled execution, the man, seemingly unfazed, requested his final meal: 3 bananas. Fed up with the bizarre pattern, the executioner defied protocol and refused to grant the request. Determined to proceed without delay, the man was strapped into the electric chair without the customary last meal. As the switch was pulled, sparks danced, and smoke enveloped the room, yet the man emerged unharmed once again. The executioner, baffled and speechless, stared in disbelief at the resilient conductor. With a wry smile, the man broke the silence. "Oh, the bananas had nothing to do with it. I'm just a bad conductor." The absurdity of the situation echoed through the corridors of justice and beyond, leaving an indelible mark on Ludlow's history. The man, labeled the bad conductor, became a legend, a cautionary tale, and a mysterious figure whose fate seemed intertwined with the whims of fate and a quirky sense of humor. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, and want to hear more of our short stories, please like and subscribe, and leave comments.